Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the 2 affordable townhomes being made available at Blueberry Hill Estates in Melrose. And the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the townhomes. We're also going to cover the application, the eligibility and lottery processes, and then what to expect after the lottery. So if you have any questions during this session, you're encouraged to either type them into the chat in the Zoom chat here, or I'll be asking throughout the presentation if anyone has any questions, so you can go ahead and unmute yourself at that time. When you came into the room, you were muted just so we could minimize any unnecessary noise. So this is a live session. It is being recorded. It will be posted to SEB Housing's YouTube channel later on tonight, in case anyone wants to view it that was not able to attend. And if you have any questions after tonight, info@sebhousing.com, anything that you don't think of that you still want to know about the opportunity or the affordable housing program, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com. And then also we have a phone number here as well, the 617-782-6900 extension 2. And you can contact us there as well. So if there's any issues with viewing the screen or hearing me or anything like that, let me know. But first, just want to give some background information on who we are. So SEB Housing, we're an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we've been hired by the developer to market the affordable townhomes, conduct this information session, collect and review applications, and determine applicants' eligibility for the affordable housing program. And then we'll eventually be running the lottery as well. So we're not part of the sales team for the units, and we haven't seen them in person. In the initial phases, though, we will be your main point of contact rather than the development or sales team. But further along in the process, you will have more direct contact with the owner if you're invited to move forward to purchase one of the townhomes. So there's 2 broad steps in the process that we'll be discussing during the session. The first is you need to first apply for the affordable housing program. So you're going to be in touch with SEB Housing during that process. We'll be able to answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program. We'll do a preliminary review of your lottery application. And if you're eligible, you'll be entered into the lottery and given a position on the waiting list after the lottery is held. The second step involves the process of actually reserving and buying one of the townhomes. So your opportunity to do that will depend on your wait list placement after the lottery. Most of the information that I'll be covering tonight is in an information packet for this property. Page 11 of that information packet lists the approximate timeline for those steps and just the steps of the process in general. So if you haven't done so already, if you go to our website, sebhousing.com, and you click on affordable housing opportunities, and you select I want to buy, since this is an ownership opportunity, and you select Blueberry Hill Estates, you're going to be taken to a page specific to this property. It has a downloadable version of the application, a template of the sample deed rider that we'll talk about tonight, and then also the information packet that has a lot of the material that I'll be covering tonight. I'm not going to be able to cover everything that's in there, so if you're interested in this opportunity, I do recommend that you take a look at that information packet. It should be useful to anyone who is interested in this lottery opportunity. So if you choose to apply to purchase one of the affordable townhomes at Blueberry Hill Estates, you'll first need to complete that affordable lottery application. You can submit it to us in one of several ways. So you can email it to us at info@sebhousing.com. You can fax it to us. The fax number is on the first page of the application. You can send it in regular mail, or if you're in the Needham area, that's where we have an office, and we're located at 257 Hillside Ave. And there's a drop box located to the left of the building. So if you wanted to hand deliver it, you could do that. We do check the drop box each day, and it's secure. So whichever of those options works best for you, you just want to get your application in. We encourage you to get it in early if you think you're interested. It is fairly brief. It should only take you 10 minutes or so to complete. There's no supporting income documentation that's needed at this early stage. You do need to submit, however, a mortgage pre-approval with your application. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes as well, but it's just that lottery application, which is giving your basic household and income information, and then the mortgage pre-approval that you need to send in. So applications are due by June 12th. So they would need to be either delivered or postmarked by that date to be considered for the lottery. You do not need to be a resident of Melrose to apply. However, households who do qualify for local preference are going to have priority on the waiting list for one of these 2 townhomes. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. That's not meant to deter you at all from applying if you don't live in Melrose, because you do not need to be a resident of the city to apply. All right, so the blueberryhilllane.com, that is a website that is not specific to the affordable home, but it is the property's website. So if you haven't already, you might want to take a look there. They might have some more photos for you, things like that you'd be interested in. Tours will be available. The homes, I've been told, will be finished within the next 2 weeks. So tours are not available at the moment, but they will be prior to the lottery, I believe. So more information on that, you can email us if you're interested in that. These townhomes are being sold at an affordable price to households with incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. And we'll talk more about how that is figured and how your income is calculated in a few minutes as well. So Blueberry Hill Estates, real quick, just an overview, is a new subdivision of 19 homes in Melrose. It's located just about a mile from the Oak Grove MBTA train station and 2 miles from Route 1. There is 1 2-bedroom home being offered. It contains 2,793 square feet, and there's 3.5 bathrooms. So that's a large, both of these are large homes, but the 2-bedroom townhome, you'll notice, is actually larger square footage wise than the 3-bedroom. So I just want to call that out because that is not a typo there. That is the case. So again, the 2-bedroom townhome, a little bit larger than the 3-bedroom townhome, just the way that the units are configured. There is not that additional bedroom in the larger home. The 3-bedroom home contains 2,009 square feet and has 2.5 bathrooms. Both townhomes have a porch, a walkout deck, a garage, full unfinished basement. The kitchens have quality appliances. The exteriors of the home are meant to be low maintenance with vinyl siding and trim. There is a monthly fee of $390 per month that covers common area landscaping, general maintenance of the outside of the building, trash, snow plowing, and then the sales prices are on your screen there as well. So the sales price for the townhome, for the 2-bedroom townhome, the affordable sales price is $228,600, and for the 3-bedroom home, it's $259,400. So these prices are significantly below what the market rate or market rate town homes are selling for in the community. From what I could see online, they're going, the market rate units are going for anywhere between $850,000 to a little bit over $1 million. So these homes, like I said, are going to be sold at affordable prices. They're only being made available to households with incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. It's referred to as AMI sometimes. So AMIs are amounts that the Department of Housing and the Department of Housing and Urban Development releases each spring. Melrose falls within the Metro Boston AMI area, and since these are affordable townhomes, they're also going to have what's called a deed rider along with the deed at the time of purchase. That will need to be filed at the time of purchase. And I'll give you an overview of what the deed rider actually says so you know what that entails. But basically, the deed rider is ensuring that the home remains affordable in the future, even if the initial owner or any subsequent owner decides to sell. Can everybody else hear me okay? There's one person here that sent me a direct message a few minutes ago about not being able to hear me. I think everybody else can hear me though, so it may be on your end, like you said. Okay, thank you, Robin. Are these fixed prices? Yes. So the prices do not change depending on your income or anything like that. That is the price, the sales price of the townhouse. So the deed rider. The deed rider in part lists the amount or limits the amount for which you can eventually resell the property. So this opportunity, the lottery, is not for you if you're looking to buy, flip, resell a home within the next year or two. It doesn't mean you won't be able to potentially sell the townhome for more than you paid for it eventually, but it would need to be resold to another affordable buyer. So you may have some return on investment, but you're not going to be expecting the same appreciation that market rate homes may be seeing. There is a formula for resale price for the affordable properties. Is an example of that on the last page of the information packet. And the formula itself is based on area median income. It uses that area median income. The deed rider also says that it must be your primary residence. So you generally cannot be renting the home out as an investment property like an Airbnb or a Vrbo. Deed rider as well also states if you'd like to refinance or make capital improvements, such as a new roof or something like that in the future, DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development at the state, would need to approve it. These are brand new homes, so those type of improvements are likely not going to be applicable to you for many years, but we just want to make sure that, just to give you a little overview of what's in the deed rider, so you're aware. All right. I mentioned the mortgage pre-approval. It is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. So we suggest that after you review the information packet, you copy or rip out page 10, which lists the required mortgage pre-approval standards for this housing opportunity. You could just bring that to your mortgage lender, the bank, to show it to them. You want to be sure that they're offering you a mortgage product that's going to meet the necessary standards for the affordable housing program. You might also want to bring a copy of the sample deed rider, which is in our website listing, since the information listed in that deed rider can sometimes be problematic for lenders as well. There's certain loans that won't accept all terms of a deed rider. So for example, the loan needs to have a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It also can't be an FHA or a VA loan, since those types of loans don't accept the deed restrictions for the affordable program. So you don't want to be in a situation where the lender grants pre-approval, but then backs out at the time of purchase once they're made aware of the resale restrictions that are associated with the affordable housing properties. Along those lines too, we always like to let applicants know that in our experience, it's been very difficult for applicants to successfully close with Bank of America as their lender. So we recommend that you don't use Bank of America for pre-approval or mortgage for this property, because their mortgage products likely just aren't suited for affordable homes. But with that said, you can select any lender or bank that you would like to use. We just strongly recommend that you choose someone who has experience with affordable housing programs. Page 10 of the information packet has a link to the Mass Housing Partnerships website. It's a great page on their website that is a good resource for you to find lenders who are familiar with affordable housing, if you don't already have someone in mind. The mortgage pre-approval standards also state that you must provide a down payment of at least 3% of the purchase price. Half of that, so 1.5%, must come from your own funds. So if you have some sort of assistance for a down payment, it could only be for 1.5% of the sales price, because 1.5% needs to come from your own funds. So your loan or mortgage can be up for up to 97% of the purchase price. That's kind of logistics, the general application process, a deed rider overview. I'm going to talk about the eligibility.
Can you please repeat that?
Which part? The
1.5, the amount that's required for that we should have and the amount? Yeah.
Sure. So the down payment that's required is 3% of the purchase price. Half of that, 1.5%, needs to come from your own funds, your own money. If you have some sort of, down payment assistance program that you're applying for, that you're eligible for, they can pay what the other 1.5% to get you to that 3%. But just that 1.5% of the 3% down payment needs to come from your funds. So your mortgage or the loan can be up to 97% of the purchase price. Any other questions before I move on to eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program? We're going to talk about income, that sort of thing. So I have a question here. Are there any title restrictions, for example, for a 4-person household? Does it mean that all 4 people own the house? Or can, with only 1 person in the household, pay the down payment of the mortgage? I don't think there's any title restrictions in terms of how many people can be on the deed. I haven't had that question before though, so I will, if you want to, I see you direct message me. So if you want to send me your email address in the DM there, and I will take it down so I can get back to you on that, because I will check with a colleague on that. Same with the mortgage. So yeah, just send your email there. I'll get back to you on that one. And thank you. Just gonna copy and paste that. Any other questions before I move on to the eligibility process or the eligibility for the program here? Let's see one more, but let me just copy this. Does asset mean retirement money? So I'll talk about that in a minute. It does. It would only be the post-penalty amount, though. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. That $75,000 limit. That's coming up next when we talk about income and assets. Can you please explain the difference between pre-qualification, pre-approval, and credit check? So pre-approval for a mortgage is the bank, my understanding at least, is the bank is saying that based on the preliminary, approval of your household and your income that you've shown to them, you would qualify for a mortgage. You have to come back later. I don't know what they're taking from you at that point. I think pre-approval is different at every lender. So if you go to one bank, they might not need as much information from you. If you go to another, they might need almost everything that you would have to give them. So you might get a pre-approval, but then you may not be, I hope this doesn't happen a lot, but towards the end of the process, you need to have a mortgage commitment letter. And I'm sure there are cases where the commitment letter doesn't come through for whatever reason after this looks further into your finances. That is my general understanding of it. The credit check, we're not involved in any of that process, but the credit check itself would be something that the lender is looking at. The pre-qualification, it's probably part of it, but they'll be looking at finances such as, pay stubs, assets, that sort of thing, when determining if you're pre-qualified. Do you need to complete a first-time homebuyer's course? You don't. There's no requirement for that for these homes. You can do one. It's probably a great idea to do that so you're more familiar with the process. But I'm sure MHP, actually, the website, the Mass Housing Partnership website that we refer you to for lenders, I'm sure they have first-time home buying courses if you're interested in that. It's not a requirement for these. All right, so I'm going to move on to the eligibility requirements. So there's 4 eligibility requirements listed on page 4 of the information packet. The first is that everyone in the household has to qualify as a first-time home buyer. There are exceptions to that, which I'll talk about in a few more minutes, but even if you're a household who qualifies for an exception to that first-time home buyer requirement, you would still need to sell your current home prior to closing on an affordable condo at Blueberry Hill. The second eligibility requirement to keep in mind is that the household's assets and income, or income and assets, must be below the maximum allowable income and asset limit. Again, I'll talk about that a lot more in detail. On your screen right now, if you have it up, there are the current 80% area median income maximums for this opportunity for 1 person through 6-person households. The third eligibility requirement is that households need to be pre-approved for a mortgage. And then the fourth is that you could not have financial interest in the development or be a related party. So these townhomes are being offered by the developer Forest Street Realty LLC. So if you work for them or if you're related to them in some way, you might not be eligible for this opportunity. So to circle back on the first eligibility criteria to explain a little bit more about this first-time homebuyer requirement, what it states is that all household members must be considered first-time homebuyers. They are considered first-time homebuyers if they haven't within the last 3 years owned a home. So this includes through joint ownership. So if you or a household member was on the deed to a home along with another person or partner, you were still considered a owner of that home, a partial owner. The 5 exceptions to the first-time homebuyer rule, they're in the information packet. The 3 exceptions that come up the most often, I'm just going to quickly list off here for you. So the first exception is someone that's referred to as a displaced homemaker. That's someone who hasn't worked outside the home for many years because they've been home to care for the home and family. They may have owned a home with their partner or spouse, but they're no longer owning that home due to a recent divorce or legal separation. So they're no longer on the home deed. So if you owned a home within the last 3 months and that sounds like your situation, you could still be eligible as long as you're off the deed by the time that you're purchasing a home at Blueberry Hill. The second first-time homebuyer exception is that, I don't have it on the screen here. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more children, or someone who's pregnant that's being displaced due to a family breakup that's looking for a new home, so maybe a recent divorce or something like that. The third exception is an age-qualified household. So this applies to households with a member who is 55 or older, and that person is selling or has sold a home recently in order to purchase an affordable property. So like I said, if you qualify for any of those first-time homebuyer exceptions, you do still need to sell the home before buying a condo at Blueberry Hill. This might mean finalizing a divorce, which I know can take some time, but that would be an example of something that you'd need to do to make sure that your name was no longer on the deed. Before I move on to the income limits, I see there's a couple questions, so let me just say here. How is the household size verified? I'm a single parent trying to adopt a foster child. Do I qualify as a 2-person household? I do not believe you would qualify as a 2-person household right now. That's a great question. I don't know how far along you are in the process, obviously, of adopting. Well, it sounds like you already have the foster child living with you, so I believe you would be I take back what I just said. If the child's already living with you, you could put down that you are a 2-person household, and you would need to submit documentation to us just confirming what your status is if you've adopted. I don't even know if that matters. I would put down that you're a 2-person household. I'm going to confirm for you. So again, if you could send me, I know it's a direct message here, so if you could send me your email, I will get back to you. Just I don't want to tell you one thing and then have it not be the case after you've applied. But I do believe that you would put that you are a 2-person household. Yep, I got it there. Okay. So I will email you that. Hopefully I'll have an answer to that by tomorrow. All right, one more question up here, I think. When you say household, does that mean anyone on the mortgage loan? When I say household throughout this, it's just kind of the applicant, the whole family, anyone who is going to be living in the home, anyone who you'd be listing on your application, really, which would be anyone who's going to be living in the home. And yeah, it would, I believe the mortgage would have to list everyone as well. So yeah, okay. So the second eligibility requirement, just to circle back on that as well, the income limit. So again, they're on your screen if you have it up. Since these are affordable townhomes, they're only going to be made available to purchase at prices that are lower than the market rate homes in the development, and they're only going to be made available to households with incomes at or below that 80% of area median income. The maximum income amounts are set by household size. So when you're figuring your approximate household income, you'll want to include the income for everyone who'll be living in the home. These numbers are on the application, on the first page of the application, in the information packet. They're on the website. They're everywhere. So for example, anyone who maybe doesn't have your screen up, if you're a 2-person household, the current maximum household income for this opportunity is $89,500. If you're a 3-person household, it's $100,700, and so forth. You are not required to submit verification of income when you submit your lottery application and your mortgage pre-approval. Applicants will be provided with a documentation requirements guide once you're found eligible for the lottery. So we'll send you a link to that guide, or we'll send it as an attachment to the email responding to you, letting you know that you're eligible for the lottery. And that guide details exactly what types of documentation, such as pay stubs, benefit statements, tax returns. And just keep in mind that it's tax returns for the last 3 years that would be necessary for this opportunity. That guide will let you know, depending on your income sources, what we're going to need from you if you are at the top of the waiting list and asked to move forward. So we suggest that everyone reviews that guide carefully, because if after the lottery you are invited to move forward in the process, you have about a week or 10 days to get that information into us. And so although we don't require income verification now, I'm just going to give you a basic overview on how the income is going to be calculated. So income for this affordable housing program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So this includes bonuses and overtime. The only exceptions to this would be minors. So anyone under the age of 18 in your household who's earning a wage, we're not going to count their wage income. And then also dependent full-time students who are working, we would only count the first $480 when determining your income eligibility. We are required to count gross income, so not net income. That's the amount, obviously, that you make before taxes. We understand, obviously, you don't take home the full amount of your salary, but gross income is required to be counted according to the program. So how we calculate your income is not one size fits all. Everyone's income circumstances are unique. So some applicants have that weekly salary that's consistent throughout the year. Other people are self-employed or working seasonally. In those types of more uncertain circumstances, we might need to look further back in the past in order to anticipate your income, your household income for the next 12 months. And then specifically for applicants who are self-employed, you are going to be required to complete a profit and loss statement, providing supporting documentation for your business. And your business expenses will be taken into account. But for any households who are not self-employed, it is always going to be that gross income that we count. We're not able to consider other expenses if you don't have a business. So in general, any income that you have been making, we're going to assume that you will continue to make it going forward, unless we have some sort of definitive documentation stating that you're not going to be earning that income source in the future. So that could be, you know, a written letter from your employer stating that, you know, overtime isn't going to be, or overtime or bonuses aren't going to be paid out in the next year, something like that. We aren't permitted to accept statements from applicants. It would need to be from an employer. So sources of income that you're going to see on the application, it's going to be on the table, reminding you of all the types of income sources that we're looking for, but you just want to make sure that you're writing everything down. It could be wages, but also Social Security payments, child support, pension payments, unemployment, workman's compensation, that sort of thing. Any assets that are generating income. There is no minimum household income for this lottery, but you do want to keep in mind that in order to qualify for a mortgage pre-approval, you're going to need to meet the lender or the bank's requirements in order to get that pre-approval. So just keep that in mind. I see some questions that have come in, so hold on just a sec here. So everyone has to be on the mortgage. I know I said that before. I'm remembering now that we had another opportunity recently where someone had been pre-approved without their new spouse, and they do not need to get a new pre-approval with the spouse. So there could be some variations in terms of who needs to be on the mortgage. It may just need to be the main head of household or the person with the income coming into the household. So you should be fine there. So I count my 17-year-old daughter's part-time job income. So you would write it on the application, but you would, you know, I'd probably put in parentheses or something like that, 17, or we would see if you wrote her birth date, because that income will not be counted towards your total household income because she's under the age of 18. If she turns 18 between now and the closing, that could be a different story because she will be 18 at the time. If she's a full-time student, though, we wouldn't count all of the wages. So just write it down, and we'll make sure that it is, you know, that we do what we need to do with it according to the program guidelines. I'm a stay-at-home parent, and my fiance's pre-approval for mortgage is just under his name. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, if you don't have wage income coming into the household and you're not on there, you should be fine. But if you're the person who's submitting the application, he's going to be on the application, obviously, but I don't think it needs to be his name on the application. If you could send me, I'm going to say it again, if you could send me your name, your email, I will confirm with my colleague who processes the applications for these homeownership lotteries. And we'll get right back to you on that. Do food stamps, cash assistance count as income? No, you want to put them on your application. There's a spot for it, I believe, but unless it's TFDC, well, I could say no to food stamps. If tax assistance, if you're talking about TFDC, EAEDC, that sort of thing, yes, it counts as income, but the food stamps would not. You want to list all of it though. So if you have an 18-year-old in college full-time, you only count the first 480. Yes. So if you're a full-time student, even if they're over the age of 18 and they're working, it's only that $480 for the full year that would be counting towards your total household income. If you're legally court-ordered separated but not divorced yet, do you need to finalize the divorce, which takes time, or include all income? So you should put, well, I believe, and I don't have the information packet in front of me here. What's that do? We just updated the guidelines on this because we get some direction from the state on it. Your divorce doesn't need to be finalized when you're applying for the lottery, but it will need to be finalized before you reserve a home. So that would be a few months from now, or at least a month from now. You wouldn't be allowed to purchase an affordable home until your separation or divorce is complete, because the terms specifying the allocation of assets and custody of any children must be finalized so that your income and assets can be accurately reviewed. If you've only filed for separation, you won't be allowed to purchase a home. So you're going to want to get the information into us if that applies to you. Just get as much information as you can into us, and we can let you know if there's anything else that we might be able to request from you to get you into the lottery. Or actually, you'll be in the lottery, but just the reservation of the unit is what you wouldn't be allowed to proceed with, it sounds like. Can we refinance later or no? That is part of the deed rider. Yeah, the deed rider would say, I don't have the deed rider up, but if you need to refinance or make capital improvements in the future, you need to involve the Department of Housing and Community Development, which is the state agency that oversees the program. So you just need to run it by them, which, it could be years down the line, obviously, but that's kind of the rule on that. How do prior income taxes affect eligibility, as many people were laid off and furloughed during COVID? They're just part of the whole package that needs to be reviewed by my colleagues who are reviewing applications. It doesn't mean that, if we see that you were working at a different job 2-3 years ago, that we're going to count that income towards your total household income. We may need to get a letter from your former employer confirming that you're no longer working there. But that sort of thing. So we might ask for confirmation that that you're no longer working there. Same question about divorce. Yep. So just you want to send us all the information you have. From what I'm seeing, you would not be able to reserve a unit if you're still going through the divorce by the time and this would be more than a month from now. I know divorces take a long time, but if you were the lottery, I think, is the 22nd of June. So if anything had changed between now and then, you could send in any updated information from the court or your attorney. But yeah, it sounds like you'll be able to be in the lottery, but you won't necessarily be able to move forward with the reservation or purchase of the unit, unfortunately. But I am going to, if you could, trying to find the comment here. Same question about divorce. If you could send me your email address as well, I will get back to both of you about that. All right, so I have another one here. One more question. Yep, so someone is saying that they were in the lottery for a Woburn lottery that SEB had, and you're waiting for the monitoring agent certification. You haven't heard from us or from the monitoring agent for a few weeks. If the process isn't finalized, are you able to submit another application? Yes. So you can submit an application for any lotteries that are open between now and the time that you are certified for that. Yeah, so that won't have any bearing on your application for Woburn. So yeah, just Maria, if you could send me your email address. I'm just going to move on here, and then I will come back to it and make sure that. Thank you. See down here. Just a few more things. Sure. Let's see. All right. So assets. For this opportunity, households can't have more than $75,000 in assets at the time of the application. So this includes any funds that you might be using in the future toward a down payment. If you happen to have a family or a friend who is planning to gift you part of the down payment, that unfortunately is considered an asset as well, and you need to disclose it on your lottery application. When we're talking about assets too, it's not just cash and savings or checking accounts, but also the net value of stocks or retirement accounts. So if you have a 401k, a 403b, it is the net value of those. Also, some people are surprised that we need to ask for your Venmo and PayPal account. That is considered an asset because it's just like a bank account if you have money in there. You might think it's a little strange that we have to count money that you have tied up in a retirement account, especially for those of you who aren't planning on accessing that money for many years. The program does require us to do that, since you could, in theory, access the account to withdraw funds, albeit you'd have a large penalty on that. So it is the post-penalty amount or the net cash value that we need to count towards your total asset if you have a retirement account. So how we would verify that would be just, you'd have to get a letter from your financial institution listing that post-penalty amount. If there's any, I already mentioned this, but if there's any interest that your assets are generated, that will be considered income. We do not need documentation for personal assets such as jewelry, cars, that sort of thing. All right. So lottery eligibility. Are auto leases counted on assets? No. No. Yeah, not cars or anything to do with them. All right, so lottery eligibility. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested, we do encourage you to apply as soon as possible to get the process started. We're going to review your lottery application once you get that in, and contact you if there's any missing information or anything appears incorrect. So you have a chance to correct it and resubmit if you need to. If you're found eligible for the lottery, we're going to send you a lottery application number in the form of a series of numbers. That's the number that's going to be drawn in the lottery. It's meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name isn't called during the lottery itself. It is not a ranking of any sort at this point. It just corresponds with the order in which your application was received and approved. So if you were the very first person to submit a lottery application, your lottery number is going to be A.001. This email that you receive is going to confirm whether or not your household reported that you qualify for local preference. So you will have self-reported on your application that you believe your household qualifies for local preference, and then verification that your household actually qualifies for that preference will be required if you are one of the top households on the waiting list following the lottery. That might be in the form, that verification might be in the form of your current lease, pay stub with your employer's address, utility bill, that sort of thing. Local preference might apply to you if you live in Melrose, work within the city of Melrose, or if you have a child that's attending Melrose Public Schools. The waiting list for the 3-bedroom home will have local preference, which means that local preference households will have higher positions on the waiting list when compared to households who don't have local preference, assuming that they have the same household type. So if you're a type 3 household, so a larger household, and a type 1 local preference household is also on that list, you as the larger household will still have priority over a local preference smaller households. But if you were both type 3 households, for example, the local preference household would have higher preference. There's more information about local preference on the last page of the information packet. On your lottery application, you will have also indicated whether or not, like I said, your household is type 1, 2, or 3. All household types can apply for 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom townhomes, but type 2 and 3 households are going to have priority for the 2-bedroom unit, and type 3 households will have top priority for the 3-bedroom home. So this means that all type 1 households are going to be behind type 2 and 3 households on the waiting list that are established following the lottery. Again, in the information packet, there's a lot more details about household composition and the types that we refer to on page 10 of the info packet. Just for reference though, all households with 4, 5, or 6 members are considered type 3 households, as well as some 3-bedroom households, for example, a head of household and 2 dependents, or if you're a 2-person household and you require an additional bedroom due to a medical need. So those are some examples of a type 3 household, which would have that top priority for a 3-bedroom. So again, the lottery application deadline is June 12th. The lottery itself is going to be held virtually on June 22nd at 6 p.m. in the same way that we're meeting right now on a Zoom call. And then we create the waiting list shortly after the lottery. The top households will then be invited forward to by SEB Housing to move forward to reserve and hopefully buy one of these homes. A couple questions came in here. What if you're using your 401k towards your down payment? So the same sort of thing, if that was going to be, it would still need to be counted towards your assets. So any money that you were using towards the down payment, whether it be from your 401k or cash or savings accounts or a friend or family member, that would all just be counted towards assets. So that $75,000 cap. What is the estimated real estate tax for the townhouse? That's something I should have looked up. We've had that question before. I don't have it now for you, but if you were to look up the Melrose tax rate, you'd be able to see that. I apologize for not having it for you though. Can you apply for both properties? Yes. You would indicate that on your application. There's going to be 2 check boxes for 2-bedroom townhome and 3-bedroom townhome. And you could put them both there. Is a 1-person household a type 1 household and should apply for a 2-bedroom home? Yes, the 1-person household is always a type 1 household unless there's some sort of medical need for an extra bedroom. And you can apply for a 2- or 3-bedroom home. You're just going to have last priority for the 3-bedroom home. You'll be in a lower priority for a 2-bedroom home as well as a single person, but you can apply for all. Is the tax rate based on the sales price rather than the market value? That's a question I should know as well. Anyone who is asking about sales prices for, tax amounts for this property, why don't you send me your email as well, because that is something that I'd like to get you that information if I have it. So go ahead and send me email addresses there. And if you don't hear from me by tomorrow at around noon, you can email info@sebhousing.com and we'll get back to you. I believe it is the assessed property value though. But for affordable homes, that is a good question. I believe it's usually market value, which seems like it would make things unaffordable. So I might be wrong there. Trying to go up here. Good questions. All right. Trying to get all you guys here for tax info. Let me just, and like I said, if you don't hear from me for about noon tomorrow, just make sure that you send a message to info@sdbhousing.com. So in the packet, it did say price of affordable home, not market value. Thank you for that, Allison. You know the materials better than I do right now. But yeah, I'll double check on that just to confirm the amounts for you. If I have the actual amounts, we'll be able to send that over on both properties. All right. One moment here. In one of the prior slides, it said that income and assets had to be below 78.3 for a one-person household. Is that true, or is the income limit 78 and a separate threshold of 75? No, so the 78.3, I'm just going to flip back real quick. The 78.3 is the income. I see what you mean. It says income and assets are below 80%, but yeah, so it's income. These are the maximum income limits here. So 78.3 for a one-person household. The asset limit is 75,000. Thank you, because that's not clear. Yep, so those are completely separate. The asset limit for all households is 75,000, and the income limits are separate. So the one-person income limit is $78,300. The four-person household income limit is $111,850, etc. All right. So yes, I'm glad we now know about that for the tax info, but I will send you the amounts if I'm able to get that to you tomorrow. All right, so like I said, the lottery itself will be the same format in terms of being on Zoom, 6 p.m. During the session, each lottery number will be drawn. So sometimes we think of lotteries, we think there's just one winner, or in this case, two winners, because there's two homes. But that's not the case here. This lottery is just held for us to be able to establish the waiting list for the townhome. So it creates an order of priority for the next steps in the process after we have the lottery. So if you're watching the night of the lottery, it's not really possible to determine who's first at that point, or to really know your position on the waiting list. And the reason for that is because all of the every lottery applicant is in the drawing. So you're going to have local preference household mixed in with non-local preference households for some of the drawing. And you're also going to have all of the different household types as well. So if a type 1 person is drawn first in the lottery, they're still going to be behind all of the type 2 and type 3 households on the waiting list. Also, households who were entered into the lottery might be found ineligible at some point later in the process by SDB Housing, or they might remove their application from consideration. They might decide they just don't want to purchase the unit. So if your number is drawn later on in the lottery, so if you're 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever it is, but there's only that one home, you shouldn't necessarily assume that you won't have the opportunity to move forward in the process to purchase one of the townhomes. Because like I said, there could be people dropping off the wait list ahead of you. So following the lottery, we do our best to send the waiting list to applicants as soon as possible. Usually they're sent no later than noon the next day. And you will have that application, or sorry, you will have the email with the waiting list attached to it. We'll send it to you by email. If we don't have your email address, we'll send it in regular mail. So when you're reviewing that email, you're going to find your application number and you're going to see where you fall on the waiting list. At that point, you'll have a better idea of where you fall on the list, but also how likely it is for you to be invited forward to the next step in the process. So if you're one of the top households on the waiting list, we're going to send you, SEB Housing will send you an invite to move forward in the process. That is the point where you'll be asked to submit all of your income, asset, and tax documentation that will need to confirm your eligibility for the opportunity. So hopefully by this point, you've been able to gather the information that was spelled out in the documentation requirements guide that you received when you were found eligible for the lottery. And this is the point again where you'll have about a week to 10 days to submit that requested verification. So once we've reviewed your application package, we're going to respond to you within a few days. Most applicants don't submit a 100% complete application on the first try. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first is that there's just so much information that needs to be submitted to us. The second is that because sometimes we have further questions for you after we're reviewing your bank deposits, for example, or your pay stubs, some questions arise that we just need clarification on. So again, it's just why we encourage applicants to prepare documentation early once the program documentation guide has been sent to you. Once you've been invited, or before you've been invited to move forward, just make sure you kind of have a file set aside with that information in case you are invited forward. I saw a couple questions here. Can we email you as the due date is closer to see how many applicants, how many people were accepted into the lottery? Sometimes when it's a large turnout, it discourages. So you can't be part of the you can't be on the waiting list if you don't just submit the application. You can do that. We'll let you know how many people. There's 27 applicants right now who have been approved for the lottery. I can tell you that. And I would encourage anyone though who's interested to submit an application, because it is, it's a very short lottery application, because we do not need your income, asset, or tax documentation at all to enter you into the lottery. So there isn't much for you to submit other than that mortgage pre-approval, obviously. One second here. Okay, so we have another message here after the lottery. I'm going to be out of state until July 9th. Based on the timeline, how likely is it that you need to be in state before July 9th? So the lottery is the 22nd of June. We would be asking for documentation probably the next week to come in. I mean, if you needed an extension for a week or so, we would work with you on that. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you have documentation that is electronic though, so if you had your pay stubs on a website, which a lot of employers have, or tax returns and things like that digitally, you probably can get most of it to us before then. So I wouldn't worry about that. Someone else said here, it's been difficult to find a responsive lender. Can you recommend a lender? Yep. So in the, not a specific lender, but in the information packet, I think it was page 10, there is a link to Mass Housing Partnership, and specifically the link to their lenders. And those are applicants, or those are lenders who are very well-versed with affordable housing, because MHP is a nonprofit that works a lot with homeownership. So hopefully you'd have some luck with them. So you need to attach bank statements of the application, not with the lottery application. We don't need any supporting documentation, income, asset, or tax documentation with the lottery application. We only need the pre-approval and the lottery application itself. Correct, yep. When could you view the home? So the homes are supposed to be finished within the next 2 weeks, the developer said today. I don't know if that means that tours would be available within 2 weeks or if it would be later. I have a message out to them to ask if they would be available to view before the lottery, which I believe they will be, but I don't have the date quite yet. He did confirm that there will be tours available. When do you start accepting the applications? The application period is open now. It's closing on June 12th. So that's the last date that you could submit your application for this opportunity. But yeah, it's open now. Could you please send a link to the packet again? If you're talking about the information packet, it's on our website. So if you go to sebhousing.com and you go to affordable housing opportunities and then I want to buy, you'll see the Blueberry Hill listing there. And that will have a copy of the information packet, the application, and then also the sample deed writer for these. So just a few more things that I wanted to mention. After the lottery takes place, we are collecting all of the information from top applicants for the file review for your program eligibility, income, asset, tax documentation. If you're found to be eligible by SCB Housing, we're going to send your file over to the Department of Housing and Community Development, so a DHCD over at the state. They're the monitoring agent for this affordable housing program. So they would then do a file review and give us the green light that you're eligible to move forward in the process. Once DHCD has approved your application, the process becomes much more similar to if you were purchasing a home, a market rate home. I also want to mention too, we also want to say that if you decide to hire an attorney at any point, this would be the time in the process to do that. We encourage you to do that. It's likely a smart thing to do. It's a huge decision, obviously, to purchase a home. We want to make sure that you feel like you're well represented during the process. So once DHCD has approved your application, you're going to be put in touch with the owner at that point to schedule a tour if you haven't already toured the unit. Maybe it'll be your second tour at that point. And you also will need to complete the reservation agreement at that point. So in order to reserve a home, there is a $500 refundable, deposit that's required at that point. After you reserve the home, you have about 10 business days to sign the purchase and sale agreement and put the required deposit down, which would be that 1.5% of the sales price minus the $500 that you have paid to reserve the unit. Your purchase and sale agreement is going to include certain agreed upon contingencies and also a closing date. This is one of the final steps in the home buying process. And then once that purchase and sale is signed, you're going to need to go back to the bank or the lender who issued your mortgage pre-approval and obtain a mortgage commitment letter, which is that final okay from the bank. Their process varies a little bit depending on the lender, depending on which bank you use, but in general, they're going to ask to review all of your documentation up until this point, including the purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider, etc. They'll also do an appraisal of the townhome at that point. All applicants, so households, need to remain eligible for the affordable housing program up until the time of closing. So this process is going to take a few weeks, as you can see. About 3 to 4 weeks before your closing date, SCB Housing needs to conduct a final review of your finances. At that point, we would be asking for updated pay stubs, bank statements, your mortgage commitment letter that you will have got at that point, and we will forward your finalized package over to DHCD again for final approval. If your eligibility is maintained, you're going to move forward to closing. And then once you've closed on the home, you can move in. There's not going to be any future income or asset eligibility reviews for you. If your household qualifies for the affordable housing program at the time of closing, and you don't qualify 3 months later, that's fine, as long as you maintain eligibility through closing. Just a couple questions came in. Yes, I believe so, Lori. So would the deed rider outline rules for a home renovation, specifically finishing the basement? The deed rider is not going to speak to specific renovations, but it will let you know what you need to do in order to make that happen if you wanted to renovate, which would include contacting the state. Not sure if I missed it. What is the reservation agreement? Yep, I didn't really explain that too much in full, but so the reservation agreement is basically a document that you're going to fill out with the developer, and they're going to have you, confirm which of the units that you're applying for. There's only 2, and they're both different bedroom sizes, so it's just kind of a formality. So you're putting down that $500 deposit at that point, and you are confirming that that is the home that you intend to purchase once you go towards closing. So that covers all the points that I wanted to hit off of the information packet and the general process for eligibility of the programs, the affordable housing program, and also the lottery process. Any other questions? So what if a relationship status changes? May we have someone move into the home after we put, yeah, so that's all, any household changes, income changes, people moving in and out of the household after the home is purchased, that, you know, none of that would need to be reported to anyone. Yeah, there's really not a lot of involvement at all, or no involvement, other than just if you need to renovate the home or if you're looking to sell the home. At that point, the state would need to be involved per the deed rider. But yeah, people moving in and out, that doesn't come into play with these homes. Any other questions? Again, just want to encourage everyone, get your lottery application in if you are interested in these homes. June 12th is the deadline, and I will get back to everyone whose email address I copied down here about both the divorce questions and the actual tax numbers, if I can get those for you. And yeah, I'll just wait around for one more minute if anyone has questions. Oh, thank you, Laurie. I appreciate it. This is a great turnout for the session. So I know we have a lot of interest, but yes, just encourage you guys to get the lottery application in. Thanks so much for your time too. Have a good night.